Hello and welcome to another Flash video tutorial. This video is going to cover the rectangle tool and some key points on drawing. So to begin, I'm going to go ahead and open up a new ActionScript 3.0 file. If you don't see the same screen I have here, we're going to go File, New, select ActionScript 3.0, and then go ahead and click OK. And once your file's opened up, remember if you don't have the same view that I do, we have our workspace drop down, and go ahead and change it to classic. Now, once you're there, you go all the way over into the toolbar, or toolbox, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to select the rectangle tool, which I already had it selected, but if you didn't, all you have to do is left click, and we have our rectangle tool selected. Now, to begin, I'm going to go ahead and draw your attention to these two colors down here, these two boxes. One looks like a pencil, one looks like a paint bucket. These are called stroke color and fill color. And just to show you what they are really quick, I'm going to click and drag. And now I have a rectangle. It might be hard to see, but the outline is black, while the inside, or the fill, is blue. I'm going to change it again. Maybe this will be easier to see. I have a black stroke and a red fill. Now, these two color selectors or color pickers, they're the same for the stroke and the fill. So see all my options here are the same options that I have here. And to select these, all you have to do is left click and you can go ahead and pick a color. Now there's multiple options here underneath our colors, so I'll just go through them really quick. We have all of our normal colors, so normal colors are pretty self-explanatory. We have a color value here that says it's basically just a numerical representation of whatever the color is. Down here we have pre-made gradients, so these are essentially colors that fade from one color to another, or from a bunch of colors to a bunch of other colors. So right now this one's pre-made, it's a rainbow. I'll go ahead and draw. You see I have a rainbow in the center. I'll show you how to make your own gradients in the future, but for now, if you want to use these pre-made ones, you can go ahead and do that. The other option here is called no fill, or if we were underneath our stroke, it'd be called no stroke. And if you go ahead and click that, and I'll leave the stroke here, I'll have no fill, and I'll go ahead and draw, and you can see now I put no fill, so all I have is a stroke. There's nothing in the center. I'm clicking and nothing is being selected. If I were to change the fill to even white and draw, you can see now I have something inside of my rectangle. If you notice now, if you drag if you drag the fill out the way, that everything behind it has been erased. And when you're working with Flash, with the basic drawing tools, that's pretty much everything on this toolbar here. You're going to overwrite anything you already have on the stage. So if I go ahead and draw a red rectangle, and then draw a blue one on top of it, and then try moving my blue one out the way, see now there's nothing here. There's nothing to select. My white rectangle, the outside still exists, and the outside of my red rectangle still exists, but there's nothing in the center here, although it looks like it. And I can tell because I can change the stage color to, let's say, green, and you can see it shows through. The last part, I can change my stage to white. The very last part, or not very last part, but a very important part to know is that Flash has an option for alpha or transparency, and it's basically how see-through or how not see-through your colors are. So 100% means it's perfectly visible, and 0% means you can't see it at all. And you can see here in this color picker that that my color has kind of gone away, and that grid there is basically just to show you how see-through is your image. So if I have blue, actually I'll change it to green, and I have it a little bit see-through, so I'm setting it at 50%. Go ahead and draw, and I'm going to make a perfect square, and I'm going to do that by clicking, left clicking, holding down shift, and you can see it snaps to being a perfect square and letting go. And even though this is transparent, and I can know that it's transparent because when I click, you can see the color goes back to the original color, and I can show you that with 0% opacity really quick. Oops, and actually I just changed it on accident. So I'm gonna left click, hold shift to create a square. You see if I select this now, it turns green, and that's because of opacity. If you want to end up actually seeing your transparency, basically you want to see this blue square in the background. Don't worry about this now, but just a quick explanation is that when you're drawing on the same layer, on the same frame, you're going to overwrite anything you draw over, even if it's transparent. I'm going to create a new layer really quick, just to show you that I'm not lying. Create a new layer, and I'm going to hold shift and let go, and you can see now you can actually see through my square. But don't worry about multiple layers for now. Just know that when you're drawing, if there is actually anything you're drawing on the same layer, it's going to overwrite. I'm just the selection tool here. I'm just left clicking, dragging to select everything you see there, and I'm just pressing the delete key. And I'll go over exactly how to delete everything in the future, use the selection tool and all that, but we don't need to worry about that right now. The other part of the rectangle tool is the rectangle options. So you can see in the top right, that we have our stroke color. If you notice, if I change it over here to, let's say, white, then it also changes down here. And I have my fill color. I'll change this to this. You can see it changes down here. There is one thing that I forgot to mention really quick. If none of these colors are the colors you're looking for, there's like a color wheel, and this is also down here in these options as well. So you can click it, and you can just pick a color you like, change it darker, lighter, and once you go ahead and click OK, you can see my color has changed. So I'm going to set this to something you can actually see, and go back over here to our properties. So we have our stroke color, our fill color. This right here is the stroke size, or maybe sometimes called the stroke weight. Right now it's set to 1, so it's 1 pixel. So you can see this black border here is only 1 pixel wide. If I go ahead and change this to 10, I'll go ahead and draw. Now I have a thicker outline. And you can bump this up to something ridiculous like 200, and it looks like I have no fill, there's no red here, but really it's just hidden by the stroke. And now Flash considers strokes and fills to be separate from one another, even though when we draw them with a rectangle tool, they get drawn on the screen together. I'm gonna go ahead and delete all this. Go back to my rectangle tool, change my stroke down to 2. Now we have stroke style. Stroke style is pretty much if you want to put some kind of accent or some kind of colorful, maybe not colorful, but artistic maybe look to something. So I'm going to left click, hold shift, and now I have a dashed line because I changed my stroke style to dashed. And there's all these other things like ragged, which are just a little bit different. You can play around with these and see how they actually look, or if it's the look you want to go for. Maybe you don't want to use these, so you can just leave it at solid. Scale, don't worry about scale. We're not going to worry about cap. Join is just pretty much how your edges are rounded. So right now I had it to round, so you can see my rectangle here has rounded corners. If I change this to, I believe it's called miter or miter, I'm going to click, hold shift, let go. So that's how I get a square. Left click, hold shift. Let me bump the stroke up really quick. I'm gonna delete all this stuff. So rectangle tool, left clicking, shift, holding down shift so I get a perfect square. Letting go, you can see my corners are pointy now versus, if I had join as round, now my edges are rounded. There's another option called bevel, which it's sort of It's a mix between point and round, and it's hard to actually see that. So if I bump this up, you can see the edges kind of have a 45-degree angle on each side, so it's not quite rounded but not quite pointed either. So that's just an option for you to play around with. I recommend leaving it on mitter or miter, whatever it's called, or however it's pronounced, excuse me. I'm going to delete all this stuff here, and I'm going to go back to the rectangle options, and down here we have rectangle corner radius, and I believe this goes by the separate name, but basically what these options here do is change. You can basically have your rectangles have rounded corners. So if I were to make this value, so right now it's 0, so I'm gonna left click, hold shift to draw a square, let go. You can see my corners aren't rounded, and I'm not talking about the stroke on the edge here. I'm talking about the actual square that we've created. So you can see there's no rounding at all here. There's nothing, just a normal square. If I were to change this value to, let's say, 45, you can see all these other values change. I actually can't change these other values right now because they're locked or they're linked together. I'm going to go over that in just a second, but I changed this to 45. And you can see now, if I hold shift to create a perfect quote-unquote square, even though it's not really a square right now, all my edges are rounded. And if I bump this up to a higher number, let's say 90, you can see I have something, left click, hold shift. Now I'm holding shift. My square is actually looking like a circle. So even though it's a rectangle, you can kind of see when I drag around that's trying to be a rectangle, but these corners are so rounded here that I just basically created a circle. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all these. Go back to the rectangle tool. But let's say I wanted individual corners. Actually, no, before I go ahead and do that, you can actually change these numbers to be negative numbers and they'll round inwards. So if I want to create something maybe that looks like a movie ticket or something along those lines, you can see instead of rounding up towards the outside, they rounded them in. So same thing, if I were to change this to like negative 90, some higher value, you can see I get this value that shape that kind of looks more like a diamond now. The corners are all rounded. And these are just values to play around with. But let's say that I wanted only one corner to be rounded, right? I'll set this back to 0, or you can just click the reset option here underneath our properties window. And if you can't find the properties window, underneath the window, click properties, just in case you forgot, or you couldn't find it. Say I wanted only one corner to be rounded. All you have to do is click this lock icon or link icon. You can see now I've broken the link, I've broken the lock. We're free to change the individual values for this option. Flash has a bunch of other things that function the same way. Something might be locked together and you have to click on an icon to unlock them. But I'm gonna go ahead and click unlock, and now I can set my top left corner to 45. I'll set my top right corner to 45, set my bottom left corner to 45, and I'll set my bottom right corner to set my two bottom corners to negative 45, not positive 45. So my rectangle tool, holding shift so I get a perfect square and letting go, you can see now I have the top two corners rounded normally, so rounded towards the outside versus the bottom two rounded towards the inside. So I can even just say I don't want these corners rounded, I just want this one rounded at like negative 90. I'm gonna left click, hold shift. Now I get this thing that kind of looks like someone was trying to take a bite out of my square. Let's do some real world simulations here. Maybe not. Color of crackers. Crackers are yellow. Say some dude was hungry. He was trying to eat my crackers, or maybe a piece of cheese. It's a piece of cheese, right? Some dude was taking bites out of my cheese. I'm a little upset, and well, here's my cheese. Now I don't know what to do with it, but got half-eaten cheese. So that pretty much sums up the rectangle tool. I hope these concepts all stick with you. A lot of the other tools we'll be working with will function very similarly. The options will be the same. So just a quick review. We have our stage, we have our timeline, we have our toolbox right here, we have our properties window. And if you don't see any of these, remember under window, you can find whatever it is you're looking for and just click on it, or you can go under our workspace options and reset your workspace. Then we have our stroke color, which changes the outline of our shape. We have the fill color, which changes the inside of our shape. And then we have our properties here that we can mess with. So under here we have stroke size, so we can change how thick our outline is. We have stroke style, which you can change basically just if it's a patterned line. We have join, so don't worry about cap or scale. And we have, for the rectangle tool, we have rectangle options where we can round all of our corners. Remember that we can click this link to lock them so that they're all the same, or we can unlock it and actually change these values individually. I'm going to go ahead and reset them. And as a final note, remember, if you want to create a square, you have to left click, hold shift, and Flash will go ahead and lock it to being a square, no matter where you drag your cursor. If you let go, it's going to go try to be a rectangle. So shift, let go, and now I have a rectangle. And also remember that when you draw in Flash on the same layer, that you're going to overwrite anything that was already there. So that's about it for this video. And when you're done, go ahead and proceed on with the next step.